When we hear coronavirus, well, a very specific global event often springs to mind, doesn't it? And we might assume, we know the full story.
Hmm.
But what's really fascinating is that the saga of coronaviruses in the animal kingdom holds a surprising, maybe even hopeful twist.
It really does. It's a story that beautifully illustrates just how dynamic and, well, unpredictable viruses can be, and how nature itself can sometimes provide these unexpected solutions.
Exactly. Today, we're taking a deep dive into transmissible gastroenteritis, or TGE. It's a highly contagious viral disease of swine, and yep, it's caused by a member of the Coronavirus family.
Right. And our insights today are drawn from, well, a stack of comprehensive guides and research excerpts all about TGE in pigs. We're looking at the virus itself, the clinical picture, diagnosis, and importantly, modern control strategies.
So our mission for you today is to unpack this enduring threat, TGE. We want you to discover its really unique evolutionary story, understand its big impact on swine health and farming, and maybe gain a surprising perspective on how viruses adapt and change.
Yeah, it's a shortcut, really, to
Yeah.
getting informed about a specific, but I think broadly fascinating bit of virology and animal health.
Okay, so to really get this surprising twist, we first need to understand the original villain here. What exactly is TGE, and why was it such a terror back in the day?
Right. So TGE at its core is an acute, meaning sudden onset and highly contagious viral disease. And it only affects pigs. The main signs you see are severe diarrhea and vomiting.
Massacre.
Very nasty. The culprit is the transmissible gastroenteritis virus, TGEV. It's an enveloped, positive sense, single-stranded RNA virus.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, its genetic code is ready to go once it gets inside the host cell.
Yep.
It's classified within the Coronavirus family, specifically the alpha coronavirus genus. And historically, wow, this virus was a true devastator, first ID'd in the U.S. back in 1946.
46, okay.
Yeah, and it quickly became a major cause of piglet death worldwide. Huge economic losses because it was just so deadly for those really young neonatal piglets. We're talking extremely high mortality.
And the virus itself, the TGEV, it's kind of interesting. Resilient in some ways, but vulnerable in others.
Exactly. It's pretty stable in the cold, which, as we'll see, matters for how it spreads.
Mhm.
But luckily, it is susceptible to common things like sunlight, heat, and, standard disinfectants, iodine, phenols, chlorine-based ones. So it does have weaknesses.
It has Achilles' heel. Good.
Indeed, it does. But here's where the story takes that really unexpected turn. The whole picture of TGE, it didn't just shift slightly, it was fundamentally altered. This happened back in the 1980s.
The plot thickens.
It does, with the emergence of something called porcine respiratory coronavirus, or PRCV.
Okay, PRCV, you called it a game changer. How did this new virus come from TGEV? What was the change?
Well, that's the really cool part. PRCV is what we call a natural dilution mutant of TGEV. Basically, somewhere along the line, the TGEV genetic code lost a significant chunk in its spike gene, the S gene.
The spike gene, okay? Like the key the virus uses to get into cells.
Precisely. And this deletion, it completely changed the virus's tissue tropism.
Tropism, meaning where it likes to infect.
Exactly. It changed where in the body the virus preferred to set up shop and replicate.
So instead of attacking the gut, causing all that terrible diarrhea,
Right.
PRCV switched its focus to the respiratory tract.
That's it. And here's the kicker. PRCV causes only mild, sometimes even unnoticeable respiratory signs,
Right.
not the devastating gut disease of TGE.
Wow.
And this leads to the core insight here. Because PRCV is so genetically similar to TGEV, apart from that deletion, getting infected with PRCV actually makes pigs produce antibodies that neutralize the original TGEV.
Oh, so infection with the mild respiratory version protects against the severe gut version.
You got it. It's like nature stumbled upon its own form of vaccination for pigs.
Yeah.
Widespread PRCV infection basically gave many herds cross-protection against TGEV.
That's incredible. So this natural vaccination really changed things.
Oh, dramatically. It significantly reduced the incidence of those explosive, devastating TGE epidemics that used to plague farms. But, and this is a critical but.
There's always a but.
Always. TGEV itself is still out there. It remains a threat and can absolutely still cause severe disease in herds that haven't been exposed before. Herds that are immunologically naive.
Okay, so the natural vaccine helped a lot, but didn't wipe TGEV out completely. So how does it still spread and show up today?
Well, first off, it's swine-specific. Only pigs get it. And pigs of all ages are susceptible if they haven't met the virus or PRCV before.
And the main route is unpleasant, I'm guessing.
Yeah, it's fecal-oral. Pigs ingest the virus from contaminated feed, water, or feces from infected pigs.
And it's highly contagious,
Yeah.
right? Especially in certain areas of the farm.
Extremely contagious. It spreads like wildfire, particularly in farrowing houses and nurseries where you have lots of young, susceptible piglets close together.
And it's not just pig-to-pig contact.
No, definitely not. You've got contaminated vehicles, equipment, people carrying it on boots and clothing. Those are fomites. Even things like birds, dogs, cats, flies can act as mechanical vectors, just physically moving the virus around.
Wow, it can really hitch a ride.
It can. And remember that point about cold stability? That plays a big role. Outbreaks are much more common in winter because the virus survives longer in colder temperatures outside the pig.
That makes sense. Now, I heard TGE can look different depending on the herd's situation. You mentioned epidemic versus endemic forms.
That's right, a really important distinction. Epidemic TGE is what happens when the virus hits a totally susceptible herd, one with no prior immunity. It's explosive, spreads fast, high morbidity lots get sick, and the really tragic part is mortality in piglets under 2 weeks old can be close to 100%.
Oh, devastating. Almost total loss.
It is. Then you have endemic TGE. This is more common in larger herds, maybe ones with partial immunity from PRCV or previous TGE exposure, or herds that have continuous farrowing, meaning new piglets are always arriving.
So the virus kind of hangs around.
Exactly. It persists. It causes a milder, maybe chronic or intermittent diarrhea, mostly hitting suckling pigs that are a bit older, say 2 to 5 weeks, and recently weaned pigs. So the herd's immune status really dictates how the disease presents itself.
It really shows how immunity shapes the battlefield. Okay, so we know the virus, we know its clever disguise, PRCV, how it spreads, but what's actually happening inside the pig? How does TGEV cause such damage? The pathogenesis.
Well, it acts incredibly fast. The incubation period is super short, maybe 18 hours, up to 3 days max.
That's quick.
Very quick. After a pig swallows the virus, TGEV makes a beeline for the small intestine. It specifically infects and kills the mature cells lining the intestinal villi. Those are the enterocytes, the absorptive cells.
So it attacks the lining needed to absorb nutrients.
Precisely. Think of those little finger-like projections, the villi getting flattened out. This is called villus atrophy, and it's especially bad in the jejunum and ileum parts of the small intestine.
And that leads to the diarrhea, right? The malabsorptive diarrhea.
Exactly right. It's kind of a triple whammy, like you said before. First, the pig loses enzymes like lactase needed to digest milk sugar. Second, that undigested sugar draws tons of water into the gut. That's an osmotic effect. And third, the damaged lining just can't absorb water and electrolytes properly anymore.
A cascade of failure in the gut.
A complete cascade. And ultimately, for those very young piglets, the cause of death is severe dehydration, metabolic acidosis from the electrolyte imbalance, and just overall shock.
And the signs we see, they really depend on the pig's age. A whole spectrum of severity.
Absolutely. For a piglet that's less than 2 weeks old, it's catastrophic. Profuse, watery diarrhea, often yellowish-green, frequent vomiting. They get dehydrated incredibly fast, start shivering, they're desperately thirsty. Mortality, as we said, approaches 100%. Death usually within a day or two.
Awful. Any survivors?
Survivors often just don't thrive. They exhibit stunted growth, what farmers call runting.
Okay. What about slightly older pigs, say 2 to 5 weeks?
The signs are generally milder. You'll still see diarrhea, some dehydration. They'll look unthrifty, not doing well. But mortality is much, much lower than in the newborns.
And in bigger pigs,
Yeah.
growers and finishers.
Often pretty mild. Maybe some profuse, watery diarrhea for a few days, perhaps occasional vomiting. Morbidity can be high, meaning a lot of them might get sick, but mortality is usually low or even zero.
What about the adult pigs? Sows and gilts.
In a herd that's never seen it before, a naive herd, you'll see moderate signs. Often the first thing is they go off their feed, anorexia. Then maybe vomiting, diarrhea, they seem depressed. If a sow has just farrowed, she might stop producing milk. That's agalaxia.
Do they recover?
Yeah, they typically recover within, say, 5 to 10 days. Although, unfortunately, the stress of the illness can sometimes lead to abortion in pregnant sows.
Okay, so understanding those signs is key. But you mentioned earlier, other diseases can look like TGE. So how do you actually diagnose it? What's the biggest challenge there?
You nailed the crucial challenge right there. An explosive outbreak hitting all ages, crazy high mortality in piglets, especially in winter. Yeah, it screams TGE. But
The but again.
TGE looks clinically identical to another coronavirus disease, porcine epidemic diarrhea, or PED. You absolutely cannot tell them apart just by looking at the pigs.
So lab tests are essential, not optional.
Absolutely essential. And for the best chance of an accurate diagnosis, you need samples from pigs that are acutely ill, ideally within the first 24 to 48 hours after they start showing signs. Fresh feces are good, or if doing a postmortem, sections of the jejunum and ileum are ideal.
Okay, samples collected. What are the go-to tests in the lab?
Well, immunofluorescence, or FA, and immunohistochemistry, IHC, are great. They detect the actual viral antigen, the bits of the virus, right in the intestinal tissue sections. They're pretty rapid and reliable.
Good for a quick answer.
Yeah. Then you have PCR-based assays. These are incredibly sensitive and specific for detecting the virus's RNA, its genetic material, in feces or intestinal contents.
And can PCR tell TGEV apart from PRCV and PEDV?
Yes, that's a key advantage now. Modern multiplex PCR assays can do just that test for TGEV, PRCV, and PEDV all in one go, which is obviously critical for telling these lookalikes apart.
Makes sense. What about other tests, Elisa?
ELISA tests exist, yeah. They can detect viral antigen or antibodies in the blood. But using blood tests, serology, to diagnose TGE is tricky because of that cross-reactivity with PRCV antibodies we talked about earlier. It muddies the water.
Right, the natural vaccine effect complicates antibody testing.
Exactly. And virus isolation, actually growing the virus in the lab, it's possible, but it tends to be difficult, slow, and not very practical for routine diagnostic work.
So PCR and IHCFA on tissues seem like the mainstays. And it really underscores the need to differentiate TGE from PEDV, obviously, but also things like rotavirus, coccidiosis, maybe bacterial causes like Clostridium perfringens or E. coli.
Definitely. That differential diagnosis list is crucial for the vet.
Okay, so let's say it is confirmed as TGE. How do you fight back? Is there a specific treatment?
Yeah, that's the first hurdle. There is no specific antiviral drug for TGE. None.
So it's all about managing the situation, supportive care.
Entirely. Especially for those critically ill piglets. It's about providing unlimited access to clean water and electrolyte solutions to combat the dehydration.
Yeah.
Keeping them warm, dry, draft-free is huge to prevent chilling. And sometimes, yes, using antibiotics, not against the virus, but to control any secondary bacterial infections that try to take advantage.
Makes sense. What about immunity and vaccines? You mentioned lactogenic immunity is key for newborns.
Absolutely critical. Protection for those first few weeks of life depends entirely on the antibodies, especially IgA, that the piglets get from the sow's colostrum, that first milk, and then ongoing milk.
So mom's immunity is everything. Are there vaccines to boost that?
There are. Both killed and modified live virus vaccines exist in some places. They're typically given to the pregnant sows, the idea being to boost those maternal antibodies she passes on.
Do they work well?
Well, their effectiveness can be variable. A challenge is that injecting a vaccine into the muscle intramuscularly doesn't always stimulate the best type of immunity needed right there in the gut lining, that strong mucosal IgA response in the milk.
Okay. So what else can be done, especially during an outbreak? I think I read about something called feedback.
Ah, yes, controlled exposure or feedback. It sounds a bit grim, but in an acute outbreak, it's actually a common and often effective strategy.
Go on.
You intentionally expose all the pregnant sows to the live virus, usually by feeding them carefully processed intestinal contents or feces from infected piglets.
Whoa. Why would you do that?
It triggers a very rapid, strong, and uniform immune response across the entire sow herd. The goal is to get really high levels of those protective antibodies into the colostrum and milk super quickly for the next batch of piglets being born.
I see. It's like jump-starting herd immunity the hard way, but quickly.
Exactly. But it has to be done extremely carefully. You need protocols to make sure you're not accidentally spreading other nasty pathogens at the same time. It's not without risks.
Understood. So beyond vaccines and feedback, prevention must be huge. Biosecurity.
Biosecurity is king. It is arguably the most critical line of defense against TGE and, frankly, most swine diseases.
What does that involve, practically speaking?
It starts with sourcing. Only buy pigs from herds known to be free of TGE. Then quarantine all new animals that arrive on your farm, isolate them for at least 30, preferably 60 days, before they mix with your main herd.
Makes sense. Keep potential problems separate.
Absolutely. And strict control over who and what comes onto the farm. Limit movement of people, vehicles, equipment. If they have to come on, make sure there are procedures, cleaning, disinfection.
And sanitation within the barns.
Crucial. Using all in, all out pig flow, where possible moving groups of pigs together, then completely emptying, cleaning, and disinfecting the barn before the next group comes in. Proper manure management is also key.
What are those vectors you mentioned? Birds, rodents?
Yep, robust control programs for rodents, birds, flies, they can all track the virus around. And basic stuff, if a pig gets sick, isolate it immediately to stop it spreading to others.
It sounds like constant vigilance, almost like a military operation sometimes.
It really is. It requires dedication. Eradication from a farm is possible, though. You can do a total depopulation, clean up, and repopulate with clean animals. Or sometimes that whole herd exposure, followed by closing the herd to new introductions for a long time, can eliminate the virus.
And the economic hit from TGE, it must be significant.
Oh, absolutely. High piglet mortality is devastating financially. Plus, reduced growth rates in pigs that survive, treatment costs, the extra labor, it all adds up. Significant losses.
One final but important point. Can people get TGE from pigs?
Ah, good question. And the clear answer is no. TGEV is not zoonotic. It does not pose a risk to human health. That's crucial reassurance.
Okay, good to know. So we've really traced this virus's story from this historical terror through its fascinating natural taming by its own mutant relative PRCV and down to the constant effort needed to control it today.
Yeah, it's quite a journey.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a solid shortcut to understanding this really complex and impactful viral story in animal health.
And, thinking about TGE and PRCV, it really highlights how these tiny, seemingly accidental changes in a virus's genes can have these huge cascading effects. Changes its behavior, how it spreads, its overall impact. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other natural viral evolutions are quietly playing out around us, maybe reshaping things in ways we haven't even noticed yet? And, well, how ready are we to spot them and understand what they mean?